Maybe Nikita Zadorov was right after all.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live edition, or if you're tuning in after today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and we are joined by the enemy, Nick Zuraris, after 3-1 loss to the Rangers. But before we dive into everything, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Nick, how are you?
Very tired. It's been a long, 5-6 days. I'm very glad that was a decent hockey game and I didn't stay up for boredom. At the very least, I was entertained.
Yeah, I think that that's really where I can kind of give myself some credit, I guess, and not kick myself in the butt tomorrow when I'm falling asleep at my desk. Be like, well, at least you had some fun. You watched a minute and 15 seconds of good Flames hockey. But what happened?
So let me start answering your question with another question. What are the Flames? Because, we're 2 weeks in now and we don't know what's up. We still don't know what's up yet, and we're still kind of figuring things out, ironing things out about who they are, what they want to be. And that's really kind of what we'll talk about more as we get deeper into the episode. But as far as tonight, I didn't think they played that badly. The game got away from them when they took the 2 penalties and the Rangers scored on the power play. At 5-on-5, this was a pretty close hockey game. I mean, the Flames hit a post or two. Shesterkin made 2 insane saves, which really, I don't want to say buoyed the Rangers there, but if that game is 2-2 or 2-1 or 3-2 in the Flames' favor going into that third period, as opposed to 2-1, which it was, it's a vastly different hockey game. And of course, ifs, ands, or buts, that's excuses, that's trying to cope. But the Flames didn't play a terrible hockey game. They got a little frustrated there when they were chasing the game, trying to get back in control, and they took some bad penalties. But as far as the actual mechanics of the game, the Rangers didn't really play a great game until the third period when it was time to put the game away. But that first period was sloppy for both teams. It was there for the taking.
Yeah, and I don't think the Flames even know what they are. And
no,
we talked a lot about that last season and this summer. And for us to be sitting here and still kind of weighing our options, it doesn't feel the greatest. And I totally understand why people are discouraged. I mean, you gotta play some disciplined hockey. Like, there's no reason for just silly penalties and basic mistakes. The amount of turnovers tonight from both teams, really. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they were not good.
No, I mean, in the first period alone, I counted, I want to say Kreider alone had 3 turnovers, just completely passing the puck to nobody, not looking where he was passing, just moving the puck along. And the Flames had 2 really good scoring chances off of that. I mean, the Flames' 1 goal came directly off of a Rangers turnover in the neutral zone where Hedl forced a pass to the middle, way too hard, way too much on it. Panarin couldn't play cleanly. The Flames got in deep. They dumped the puck in. Fox followed the puck into the corner. Both Ranger defensemen were below the goal line. Nobody was in front of the net. I mean, hats off. Blake Coleman had a great game tonight. Blake Coleman was the Flames' best forward. He was constantly forcing turnovers. He was around the net mouth a lot. I did notice that at the best chances the Flames were able to generate in this game were pucks that originated below the goal line that were passed out in front into that slot area. And that's going to be the Flames' main way of scoring this year, because as we've emphasized a lot, they don't have the shooting talent of years past. They don't have anybody who's a bona fide goal scorer, so they're going to have to work a little bit harder to generate good chances to be able to score. That's what separates the good goal scorers from just the good players. The good goal scorers can score from outside, high slot, on top of the circles, those lower quality chances. But for a group like this that has a lot of work rate guys who are going to have to outwork the other team to score, to create offense, it's going to be get the puck below the goal line, bait a defenseman to follow the puck, and then try and get it out in front. And it worked to some extent. It's just they didn't hit the net tonight.
Yeah, and there were 2 shots, I think, from Kadri in the first period that I think if either one of those went in, the monkey would be off his back, and we would hopefully round that first corner for him. But it just we're still looking for that, and I'm sure it's not great for him. It doesn't feel great, and I get it. I get why they're all frustrated, and like Zadorov said today, we got rid of the problem, and there's still a problem here. So what are we gonna do? And I don't know. I don't know if Ryan Huska has concocted a plan to cook something up here.
I'm not ready to say anything definitively. Like we talked about last week when I was on the show, it's so early. A lot of teams still don't know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because the Flames didn't turn over a lot of their roster. All they really did was change like their 11th and 12th forwards and one defenseman. That's really all they did. So you would think the continuity would allow them to kind of hit the ground running. Yeah. But a lot of what didn't work last season wasn't necessarily talent related. It was mental stuff. It was environment stuff. And those types of changes, those aren't going to be things that happen during a game. Those are going to be things that happen away from the game. This is one of the things I always talk about, where NHL coaches, they earn their money at practice and meetings, not during the game. They don't actually do a whole lot during the actual game itself. There's, aside from the occasional juggling of the lines or maybe identifying something the other team's doing and making it a point of emphasis to kind of adjust slightly, for the most part, coaches earn their money away from the game lights. And we still don't know what type of coach Huska is, what kind of the teams take a little while to figure themselves out, even good ones, even bad ones. Sometimes bad teams come out of the gate hot and they cool off by December, and vice versa. Sometimes good teams come out of the gate cold and they figure it out by December. I'm not ready to make any definitive declarations yet. I will say the frustration, that is something to be worried about. Not necessarily the play, but being frustrated with how they're playing. That's something that can linger, that can carry on, that can be a real issue going forward. And that's not talent related. That's not an indictment of anyone. There's talent on this team. And I'm inclined to believe Huska is a decent hockey coach. It's just sometimes the mental aspect of a sport becomes more pressing than the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was watching, I think towards the end of the game, I was thinking, them being this shaky, it's not sustainable. It's the same way, I mean, probably a little bit different, but like the Bruins and the Knights being undefeated right now. That's not going to really mean anything come trade deadline. Like, we are still inching our way through this season, and we're inching our way through this episode here. And we're going to take a quick break to talk about our friends at eBay Motors. This is the fun part of doing live shows. You don't know where your ad stuff is. But passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us tonight on Locked On Flames. We're cruising through this. Wow.
Once you hit the go live button, the tired went away because I realized I was on camera and I had to be presentable and actually do this. So
right.
The tiredness, that's not really a factor right now.
No.
But you were talking about it before, and I brought it up, but also that sense of frustration. What Zadorov said, I felt it's funny that it was Zadorov who said it. Like, like no disrespect, no disrespect, but like this is one of those guys. He's been on a bunch of different teams. He's been traded a couple different times. He probably isn't in the Flames long-term future, but for him to be the one to be blunt and say, well, we complained about the last coach being too hard on us. And if we're going to say this isn't working right now because the coach is being too soft on us, that's not an answer. And I do think the answer lies somewhere probably in the middle, that it wasn't just Daryl's fault last year. Like we spent a lot of the summer saying, last year was the absolute worst case scenario on like 20 different things, 20 different factors. It was the worst case scenario. And it just so happened to include the coach. It's also a lot easier to change the coach than it is to change anything else. That you can pay a coach whatever you want just to go away. You can't do that with roster players because the salary cap exists. So yeah, it wasn't just Daryl's fault the team was bad last year. It underperformed expectations, but he gets some of the blame. Now it's a matter of, are these guys who we think they are, or is this kind of weird in-between team that shows glimmers of being good but also shows glimmers of being just bad? Is that more who they are? And we're not really going to get an understanding until they play more games.
Right. And I completely understand and can sympathize. It's not fun losing and watching them lose. I can't imagine how frustrating it is to be there and actively participating in these games and to basically be doing all that you can to change the outcome. And it's not happening. And his comment about players playing as individuals rather than adjusting to their line mates or their teammates was I felt like that was pointed.
It's interesting because when you see a team playing the way the Flames are, with lots of turnovers, disjointed, you can understand why someone would say, hey, we're not playing well as a team right now, because everybody's trying to do too much. Everybody's trying to make the flashy play. Everybody feels that lingering pressure, that sense of we need to do better. So they're taking some personal responsibility saying, okay, I need to do better, so I'm going to try and do more. That's the antithesis of what we've come to preach to our athletes in today's environment, which is do your job. Don't worry about someone else's. Don't try and do. Is that your job? Are you good at that? Do you practice that? No, then don't do it. I commend Zadorov coming out and saying it. It's refreshing when we get candor from players as opposed to the same rehearsed cliches we always get. I admire somebody who's willing to be honest as opposed to cookie cutter, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, words can only do so much. This is sports. Sports are results based in business. We can like these guys. We can feel bad that the situation's not going the way we want it to. But at some point, you're just bad. We're not saying they're bad yet, but at some point you might just be bad.
Yeah, there comes a point where you have turned this molehill into a mountain, and you're not escaping anything because it's all built up and there's no turning back. And I feel like that, again, it is way too early to, put a stamp and define this team. I think that, they have the potential, probably not to be Stanley Cup winners, but at least a wild card team. But they're going to have to change. They're going to have to pick it up and really just learn I don't know how many times we're going to say they have to learn from these mistakes, but they're going to have to learn from these mistakes.
So building off of that, what I will say is the reason they lost this game, that stuff is correctable. For the
Right.
most part, it's not that you're not talented enough or you're not playing well. You're making mistakes. Mistakes are correctable. That's not to say good teams don't make mistakes, they just don't make that many.
Right.
The reason the Flames lost this game was they took 2 bad penalties and a team with a really good power play converted on their power play chances. That is correctable. And coming into tonight, the Flames penalty kill had been arguably the strongest component of the team. So you had to know that regression was going to come eventually. They killed off something ridiculous, like 90% of the penalties they'd faced so far.
95.5.
Yeah.
Insane.
And that's not sustainable. Everybody knows that. But when you're in a game like this against a pretty good team, at least so far, you're going to need everything to be as buttoned up as you possibly can. And you can't beat yourself. That's one of the real components of a bad team, mediocre team, good team. A bad team finds a way to lose games. A good team finds a way to win those games. Tonight, the Flames did not play terribly. The game got away from them, and that third period, the Rangers salted the game away, and lots of sustained zone time. There was that one shift the Flames had where they had, like, I want to say close to a minute 15 of offensive zone time, and they didn't generate a single shot on goal because there were no shooting lanes, and they didn't want to take a bad shot from the outside. So that's the type of environment where it's going to be really hard to find ways to win when you're playing against a team trying to salt the game away. That's why it's so important that you keep these games within reach so you're not chasing, because once you're chasing and the game state is different, the other team is going to start playing differently. They're going to invite those bad shots from the outside, those low danger scoring chances, because more than likely they're going to recover that loose puck. They're going to skate it out. They're going to dump it down, and that's a minute off the clock by the time you've regathered, gotten back up to the neutral zone with speed, and are going towards offense. It happens. You're going to play good teams. You're going to have off nights. It's important they find ways to make sure that these bad games don't become a habit.
Yeah. I think I just remembered a very obscure stat from last year. I don't remember the exact number, but there was a time, I don't think they had a win from behind until like March, because
They
it was right
didn't.
around
Yes.
the time Markstrom got his first shutout, which
Yes.
was also the beginning of March. And that's basically the end of the season. That's not good.
No, it's not. And like we said, last year, extreme circumstance
Right.
when you lose all of those 1-goal games. That we know that statistically teams don't lose that many 1-goal games consecutive seasons. It's just I'm not going to say it's impossible, but just the way variance works, the way life works, the way we know big samples work, that
Right.
type of thing does not happen. Typically speaking, teams that have such bad luck like that, they go the complete opposite way the following season, where they get extreme luck in their favor. And it's not because they fundamentally changed anything. That's just the way data works.
Yeah. And it really feels like the Flames do an every other year sort of thing. And that's one of my favorite parts of hosting this podcast is, okay, how is this team going to impact my daily mood for the next 6 months? But I just, again, it's too early to write anything off. I don't think people need to be like going out. I haven't seen it, but Huska's like integrity, he's still new. He hasn't had time really.
All I will say in that respect to Huska is this is where you prove yourself as a coach. You don't really get a grasp on who someone is as a leader or a coach until they're faced with adversity. It's very
Right.
easy to be a leader when things are going well. When things aren't going well, that's when it's challenging to be a leader. And granted, they've played a handful of games. It's very easy for, you know, it's a 3-game winning streak solves all your issues, and all of a sudden the conversation is, oh, they put it together really quickly. He needs time. I'm sure he will figure this out as it goes along, but they're going to be bumps. There typically are in a first-year head coaches, especially a first-time head coach in their first year.
Yeah. I don't know if you maybe saw anything, but has there been an update on Ruzicka?
I haven't seen anything on Twitter. Let me see real quick as we're going. No update 15 seconds ago from Julian McKenzie of The Athletic. So
that's promising. So yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
we'll keep you updated as soon as we find something out. But we are going to move right along into our final segment and talk about, the obvious or hypotheticals in what is wrong. But before we do that, I do want to tell you about my favorite app at the moment, and that is Game Time. Game Time is getting me to Montreal to see either the Bruins or the Flames in November, and I couldn't be more excited. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event, and Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of these sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seats, and the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Nick, you are an avid concert goer. Are you looking for any resale tickets to anything?
Blink announced they're touring again next year. They didn't do the main sale, but I'll probably end up getting Foo Fighters tickets for next year, which is that same week on Game Time.
Wonderful. So if you haven't already, download the Game Time app and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for your first for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Whether you're watching live or listening to this on your morning commute, wherever you're listening, I hope you are enjoying your day. What is wrong with the Flames?
I think it's all mental. Like, in all honesty, I just think everybody's a little stressed out. Everybody's pressing, and when everybody's pressing, you're going to get the kind of disjointed, everybody for themselves stuff that's going on right now. And that's not like inherently a bad thing. When guys are trying to make plays, you want to encourage players to make plays, to be creative, to do things that you wouldn't expect, because that's where good play typically comes from, is that inherent creativity that good players have. But when everybody's kind of pushing the way they are right now and it becomes this clunky, disjointed mess, that's where you have your systems and your ideas to fall back on. The way I always talk about systems and rules within systems is simple. If this happens, I do this. If that happens, I do that. It's that simple to fall back on. And when a team is kind of pressing the way the Flames are right now, that's where it would really benefit them to have that strong systemic ideas to fall back on, where, okay, I have the puck here. I look up. If somebody's here, it needs to go here. If it's there, I need to go there. When we're struggling, we go with our basics. We try and walk before we run, and we go from there. Right now, it's not dire. It's not atrocious. There's no like glaring, oh my God, this is appalling. It's simple mistakes. It's getting beat on 2-on-1s on odd man rushes because they're playing too aggressively. Those are fixable. There is more than enough talent here with simple adjustments or reinforcement of concepts to get better results. It's that simple. This is not impossible. This is not some Herculean task. There's plenty of talent. It's just a matter of identifying how to get the talent to play better.
You know what I think would really help the Flames? If they just recreated the scene from Midsummer where they're all just screaming and crying in the cabin or the kitchen, whatever it is. And I mean, that seems therapeutic. And I feel like releasing those frustrations might help.
This is hockey. That probably the equivalent of that is like somebody throwing a dirty hit and having to fight because they do it. So like what Zadorov did, where he threw that hit with like 40 seconds left in the game. Yeah. Like wholly unnecessary, dangerous. The guy
would not just learn from this.
Yes, too. Correct. Correct. That's the kind of thing that a guy does for that exact reason, to be like, hey, guys, wake up. We're better than this. I'm going to go out here and try and maim this person to inspire you guys to play better. And it didn't have the desired effect because there wasn't enough time left in the game, nor did anybody seem to care. Like on the range, you typically speaking, when somebody throws a hit like that, at least you get a scrum in the ensuing after the
Right.
math. And the Rangers were just like, "This game's over. I'm not trying to get suspended. Let's get out of here with our 2 points and go on." And I appreciate Zadorov's willingness to kind of try and do everything. For somebody of his skill set, and he's not an untalented hockey player. He had like 12 goals last year. He's a pretty good offensive defenseman, but it's just hilarious that he seems to be the one who takes the onus on himself to be like, okay, it's not working. I'll do something.
Yeah, I was just talking with someone about that, just because of how outspoken he was over the summer about, I mean, stuff going on in Ukraine and Russia, but then to come out today and also just kind of be like, "You think I'm going to be quiet? I will happily run my mouth," and hopefully, this does inspire something. I thought that Jacob Trouba had a really good game tonight, which was disappointing.
He has played really well to start the season. They've only played, the Rangers only played 6 games, but he hasn't had any of the mind-numbing mistakes that he usually has. Granted, they've played pretty well, so those mistakes, even if they were there, really wouldn't be that big of a deal. He hasn't tried to kill anyone in the neutral zone yet. He
Yeah.
hasn't he hasn't had any of the mind-numbingly bad pinches where he leaves Miller back to defend the 2-on-1 by himself, and he's been really good on the penalty kill. The Flames had a chance there on that penalty kill in the third period, but him and Benito really did a good job of clogging the shooting lanes, forcing the Flames to overpass, not really give anything good up. The Rangers played a solid game. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't flashy. It took 2 power play goals to win, but they didn't do anything remarkable tonight. The Flames beat themselves. I'm trying to think of how the Flames beat themselves. That there
Um,
wasn't anything special from the Rangers' effort tonight.
no, and I mean, for them to give up 2 power play goals in one game, that feels very uncharacteristic of them. I don't remember what if how many they gave up in Detroit. That probably around the same, but besides these 2 games, they feel like outliers in terms of the performance of the penalty kill.
Yeah, more likely than not. I mean, most penalty kills, I want to say the league average is around 77, 76%. Like a good power play is over 80%. And the Flames were never going to maintain a 95% penalty kill. That's not feasible. But they should be able to maintain, if their goaltending is decent, 82% penalty kill. That's fine. That'll do the job. That's a pretty good penalty kill. And when you play a team like the Rangers, that's 22, 23% on the power play. It's going to be that kind of immovable force meets unstoppable object type situation. And the Rangers power play was better tonight. It happens. It's a long season. The penalty kill will find its level. It's probably a tier below where it is right now, but it's still probably an above average penalty kill, which that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, and I think we'll wrap it up on a positive note there because we got to try to find some bright spots here. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. As always, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube as well. Subscribe, leave a nice comment, give us some 5-star ratings, reviews, share with your friends, your exes, your teachers, anyone. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto and Nick at Nick Zeraris. And Nick, do you have any parting words?
I can't wait to go to bed. I'm so tired.